Have you ever found yourself wondering what really goes on in the minds of those around you? Imagine having the power to read thoughts, to uncover secrets hidden in the eyes of those near you. It sounds like something out of fiction, right? But what if I told you that you can learn to do it? There are 3 essential skills, 3 golden keys that unlock the doors to anyone's mind. With them, you will become a master, capable of perceiving what others are thinking without them saying a single word. At the end of this journey, you will not only know an ancient Buddhist story, but also gain tools to transform how you understand the world around you. Get ready, because the knowledge I'm about to share can change your life forever. But before revealing these 3 powerful keys, let me tell you an ancient Buddhist story. A story that holds the secret to deciphering even the most hidden thoughts at its core. In a distant village, there lived 2 brothers. The elder was blind. His eyes were like windows closed to the world. He spent his days at home, peaceful, while the younger brother worked hard on the farm. But the farm faced a problem. Animals invaded the field and destroyed everything he planted. The younger brother worried, thought for days about a solution, until an idea came to his mind. What if my blind brother stayed in the field to scare away the animals? He may not see, but his hearing is sharp. He can hear any sound and shout to frighten them. That way, our crops will be safe. With this idea, he built a small hut in the middle of the field and placed his brother there. "Listen carefully, brother," he said. "Whenever you hear the sound of an animal, shout loudly. That will scare them away." The elder brother took the task seriously and began to guard the field with his keen ears. Days passed, and whenever he heard footsteps or animal movements, he shouted and scared them away. The strategy seemed to work. One day, however, a deer appeared, leaping through the field. It destroyed part of the fence and ran back into the forest. Not long after, a king who was hunting the deer arrived at the field. He saw the blind brother sitting there and asked, "Have you seen a deer pass by here?" The blind brother calmly replied, "Your Majesty, I am blind. I cannot see anything. But I can guarantee that the animal that left my field does not deserve its home." The king was puzzled by the blind brother's response and asked, "How can you know that? Are you deceiving me?" challenged the king. "You say you are blind, yet you speak about the worth of the deer." Calmly, the blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I am blind. I cannot see anything. But I can guarantee that the animal that left my field was not just any deer. It was a doe, and she was pregnant. I have never known a king to hunt a pregnant doe. That is why I said it would not be worth following her." Intrigued, the king was astonished. How could someone who cannot see know that a doe was about to give birth? Driven by curiosity, the king ordered his commander to capture the animal alive to verify the blind brother's claim. When the commander returned, he confirmed what the brother had said. The doe was indeed pregnant. The king, amazed, could not understand how someone blind could know such a thing. He decided he needed to discover more. He approached the blind brother and said, "I don't know if you are truly blind or not, but I need to ask you a very important question. Do you promise to answer me with total honesty?" The blind brother nodded calmly. "Your Majesty, ask whatever you wish. I will answer truthfully." The king looked at him intently and said, "You seem to be a wise man, someone who understands the world in a different way. So I want to know, is my wife faithful to me?" The blind brother shook his head and responded, "Your Majesty, that is a difficult question. You have been married for so many years. Why are these doubts surfacing in your heart now?" But the king insisted, his voice becoming firmer. "You must answer. If you do not tell me the truth, I will condemn you to death." Faced with the king's threat, the blind brother remained calm and said, "Your Majesty, if you truly want an answer to your question, you will have to do something for me." The king, intrigued, asked, "What do you desire?" The blind brother replied, "Let me be alone with your wife for a while." The king, initially overcome with anger, reflected and finally agreed, ordering the queen to be left alone with the blind brother in a room. When alone, the blind brother asked to touch the queen. Furious at the request, the queen reacted violently, hitting him with all her strength. Despite the blows, the blind brother managed to break free and return to the king. "Your Majesty," he said, "your wife is not faithful to you." The king, furious and determined to uncover the truth, went to the queen and demanded she confess, warning her that any lie would lead to her death. The queen, with no way out, admitted, "Your Majesty, you may kill me if you wish, but I am not faithful." The king, still stunned, returned to the blind brother and asked, "How did you know my wife was unfaithful?" The blind brother responded simply, "Your Majesty, when I asked to touch her, she could have refused calmly. But instead she attacked me violently, and in hitting me, she touched every part of my body. Now think with me, Your Majesty. How could someone who reacts that way be faithful?" The king, impressed by the blind brother's wisdom, took a deep breath and said, "You are truly a wise man. I will ask you one more question, and after that, you will be free to go." The king looked seriously at the blind brother and asked, "Am I truly my father's son?" The blind brother, with serenity, replied, "Your Majesty, why cling to such doubt? You are the king. That is what matters, not who your parents were. Let it go." But the king persisted, "I want the truth." The blind brother sighed and said, "If you wish so deeply to know, I will tell you, but you must promise not to get angry." The king, curious and impatient, promised, and the blind brother revealed, "Your Majesty, you are indeed your father's son, but you live under the shadow of a miserly merchant." Disturbed, the king rushed to his mother. Almost breathless, he asked, "Mother, I need to know the truth. Am I truly my father's son? If you don't tell me, I swear I will end my own life." The mother, with a worried look, replied, "Yes, my son. You are your father's son, but you also live under the shadow of a miserly merchant." The king felt relieved, but also confused. He returned to the blind brother, intrigued, and asked, "How did you know about that merchant's shadow?" The blind brother smiled slightly and said, "Your Majesty, you have asked me many questions, and I have answered them all correctly. Any other king would have rewarded me by now, but you have not given me a single coin. That is why I deduced that there is the influence of a miser in you." The king, surprised, laughed and said, "Very well, you may ask for whatever you want, and I will grant it. But first, tell me how you can know what is right and wrong." The blind brother replied, "Your Majesty, I may not see with my eyes, but my mind sees clearly. The mind has its own language, and if you observe carefully, the eyes, lips, and gestures of a person can reveal what is happening in their heart and mind. When I want to understand someone's intentions, I observe what they do. Even without seeing, I can perceive everything through their actions. If I need to uncover something, I assign a task and pay attention to how they react. From that, I can understand what is going on in their mind." The king, curious, asked, "Does that mean I can also discover what someone is thinking?" The blind brother nodded. "Of course, Your Majesty. But before attempting to read someone's mind, you must work on yourself. You need to learn to calm your mind and focus on the present moment. Only then will you be able to understand what others are thinking." The blind brother continued, "When we bring our mind to the present, we start perceiving what the other person is thinking, because they are also living in the now. If we remain trapped in the past or distracted by the future, we won't be able to grasp what's happening around us, here and now. To understand someone's thoughts, the first step is to focus your mind on the present." He then said, "Your Majesty, I will teach you 3 simple ways to understand what anyone is thinking." The first advice the blind brother shared was about the eyes. He explained, The key to reading someone's thoughts is paying close attention to their eyes. The eyes may not speak with words, but they reveal more than any mouth. If you learn to interpret the signals of the eyes, you can understand what the person is thinking and even foresee what they will do. The blind brother continued, "Although I can no longer see, I learned this art many years ago from the wise Gautama Buddha. He was my teacher and guide. At that time, I could still see, and just by looking into someone's eyes, I could grasp their thoughts." If you want to do the same, the blind brother went on, pay attention to where a person's eyes are focused. If they wander while you're speaking, the person is uncomfortable, perhaps even looking for an escape route. This might indicate they're hiding something or lying. If they avoid direct eye contact, they might be afraid their lies will be uncovered. However, if their eyes stay fixed on you, it shows sincerity and genuine interest in what you're saying. Pay close attention to small eyebrow movements. If they lower their eyebrows while looking away, it might mean they're worried or lost in thought. On the other hand, if their eyebrows rise and their eyes widen, it could be a sign of surprise or curiosity about something you've said. The size of the pupils also reveals a lot. When they dilate, it shows the person is happy or interested in what you're saying. If the pupils shrink, it's a clear sign of discomfort or even anger. Observe the whites of the eyes, known as the sclera. If they're red, the person may be tired, stressed or unwell, and perhaps not in the mood to converse with you at that moment. I remember meeting a weary traveller once. His eyes kept darting around, never meeting mine, as though he was trying to avoid the conversation. That gave me a clue that he was hiding something. When I asked more questions, I discovered he had a secret plan. The way his eyes behaved alerted me to it. The second method involves the face. Just like the eyes, a person's face tells a story, the blind brother said. If you pay attention to facial expressions, you'll notice what's happening inside, even if the person doesn't say a word. The face is like a painting that reflects emotions. For example, if someone's lips are turned downward, they're usually dissatisfied or sad. A wide smile that involves the eyes and lifts the cheeks indicates joy and kindness. Furrowed brows might signal confusion or worry, while raised eyebrows point to surprise or curiosity. Learning to read these silent expressions gives you the power to better understand what people are feeling, even when they aren't speaking. Finally, the third method focuses on gestures and body language. The blind brother explained, "People speak with their hands and bodies as much as with words, and those movements can reveal a great deal about their thoughts and feelings. For instance, if someone begins tapping their fingers or moving their hands quickly while talking, it might be a sign of impatience or nervousness. I remember a man trying to sell me something who kept making this gesture. I realized he was anxious, and I managed to negotiate a better price. He was surprised, but it was because I'd read his signals. If a person crosses their arms during a conversation, it can indicate they feel uncomfortable or closed off to what you're saying. It's as if they're creating a barrier, protecting their thoughts. When you notice this, try to be kinder and more welcoming to make them feel at ease so they'll open up more. On the other hand, if someone leans forward while you're talking, it shows they're genuinely interested. They're attentive and want to know more. I once knew a teacher who, though quiet, always leaned forward during conversations. This showed his curiosity and readiness to learn. These small gestures can tell you a lot if you know where to look. When someone begins touching their face while speaking, it usually means they're deep in thought, perhaps grappling with an idea or worrying about something important. These subtle gestures, almost imperceptible, are valuable clues about what's happening in their mind. To truly understand people, you need patience and attention to these subtle yet powerful signs. The blind brother continued, "If you pay attention to these three methods, the eyes, the face, and gestures, you will soon be able to read others' thoughts more clearly. They will reveal what people are truly thinking, how focused they are on what you're saying, and even what they feel, even if they don't speak. But to see all this, you must first bring your own mind to the present. Only by being fully in the now can you perceive these details and understand what's happening around you. The great masters and enlightened beings can understand what goes on in people's minds because their own minds are serene and focused on the present. With this inner peace, they can see others' thoughts with clarity, effortlessly. The blind brother concluded with a final lesson. As in this Zen journey, where knowledge has the power to transform lives, observing and understanding the subtle signs around you can change the way you connect with the world. He finished with a question. Which of these 3 lessons, the eyes, the face, or the gestures, do you find most interesting for understanding the people around you? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to explore more stories like this one, subscribe to our channel.